Chapter 8. Your Fourth Stream. Winning Big in Real Estate. Do you remember the story Acres of Diamonds, told so famously by Russell H. Conwell? It's about a man who dreamed of owning a diamond mine. He sold his farm, took the money, and wasted his life in a futile search. Ironically, the man who bought his farm was looking in the stream behind the farmhouse and noticed a brilliant shiny stone glittering in the water. Yes, it was a diamond. Thus was discovered the famous diamond mine from which came many of the crown jewels of Europe. The farm was sitting atop acres of diamonds. True story. Many of us are like the man going off in search of diamonds. We waste time, money, and energy in endless money-making schemes, while the greatest source of wealth is lying right at our feet: real estate. In Chapter 2, I introduced you to the 7 essential money skills: value it, control it, save it, invest it, make it, shield it, and share it. For the last few chapters, we've been practicing money skill 4, invest it. For the rest of the book, we'll take a more active role and learn money skill 5, make it. Everybody knows that one of the smartest ways to make serious money is in real estate. In the long run, the largest asset most people ever have at retirement is the equity in their home. You've got to learn how to turn it into a cash machine. I'll show you techniques for buying properties so far below market that you won't care whether prices in your city ever appreciate again. In this chapter, you'll learn how you can still build a real estate fortune starting with little or no money down, 9 ways to find super real estate bargains, the 5 most powerful nothing down techniques. First, a comment to those readers who are skeptical about whether it's still possible to profit from real estate, starting with little or no money down. In the past 20 years, since my groundbreaking best-selling book Nothing Down was published, I have talked to thousands of people who have purchased properties with little or nothing down. Yet when you ask members of the real estate community, mortgage lenders, bankers, real estate agents, etc., whether they think it's possible to buy property with no money down, these professionals usually reply that it is a fiction of the late-night infomercial. If they'd check their own records, they'd see that nothing down deals are made every day in every major city in the world. For now, all you need to understand is that there is no investment like real estate for versatility and power. The best time to buy real estate is today, and it isn't going to change anytime soon. Your home will continue to be not only your castle, but also your bank, your cash machine, your forced savings account, and your vehicle to rapid retirement and the lifestyle of your dreams. Owning your own home is the first building block in your empire. It's the largest and most important investment you'll ever make. I'm not talking about buying property the traditional way, big down payments, difficult bank financing, embarrassing credit checks. I'm talking the Robert Allen way. You can learn to use creativity instead of cash and credit, flexibility instead of financial strength. Obviously, you can't move into your dream home tomorrow. You may be moving through a series of homes, making handsome profits on each one, and parlaying your growing equities into larger and larger properties, until the day arrives when you walk out of the closing office with the deed, of course you'll pay all cash, to the home of your dreams. Don't let the train of prosperity pass you by. Catch the caboose, then work your way to first class. Nothing down is not only a system of creative techniques, it's an attitude, a way of thinking. It's a belief in the creative spirit in all of us. If you want to own property, there is a way for you to do it, if you just don't let somebody talk you out of it. While I was preparing this chapter, I received the following letter from one of my seminar graduates, which illustrates the kind of serendipitous events that occur when you're willing to follow your dreams. Dear Mr. Allen, I started investing in real estate several years ago after reading your book and attending one of your wealth training seminars. The year we started, the real estate market was hot and getting hotter. Prices were moving up at an unprecedented pace. It almost seemed that if you didn't buy something, you would eventually be priced out of the market and unable to purchase anything. I was 25 years old, newly married, and committed to buying real estate before the prices went too high. In May of that year, my wife and I, knowing we couldn't afford to purchase a single-family home at these prices, decided to buy an investment property. We put a few $1,000s down and bought our first property, a 3-family house that needed some work, in a not-so-great area. The price was right. We made approximately $375 per month. We continued to live in our rented apartment because it was in a nicer area than the house we bought. Everybody thought we were nuts, and had no problem telling us either. Well, after about 6 months, with some paint, carpet, and minor repairs, which allowed us to get a second mortgage and pull out $30,500. This payment was $382 per month, so it was basically covered by the rents as well. Approximately 5 months after this, we closed on our second property, a 4-family house in a very nice area. We used the cash from the second mortgage on the first property, together with a second mortgage from the sellers of the second property, to put the deal together. We moved into one of the apartments, which was nicer than where we lived before, and rented the other 3 out. So exactly 1 year from our first purchase, our first house was essentially break-even, and we used none of our own money to buy the second, much nicer home. A few months later, we found another property. In January, we closed on a 6-family investment property we purchased. Using some creativity, we closed in the beginning of the month and utilized the credit for rents and security deposits, a second mortgage from the seller, and a credit for repairs to allow us to close on this property with less than $4,500 of our own money. A few months later, in March, the 4-family, property 2, appraised at a high enough level for us to refinance the second mortgage and pull out an additional $23,400 in capital. In April, we also closed on a nice 2-family house that was an estate sale. We entered into an equity share agreement with my sister, who was divorced at the time and had limited income. She provided the down payment, and I found the property, negotiated the transaction, and agreed to manage the finances, lease the other apartment, and assume the responsibility for any repairs required during the ownership. We shared the tax advantages, and she owned a home that she normally would not have been able to handle on her own. In June, I was able to buy another real estate sale. This was a single-family house. My intention was to immediately resell the property. As a matter of fact, I had a couple of offers even before we closed on the house. However, it was about this time that my wife and I found out that we were going to have our first child. Although I was content in the 4-family and didn't really buy the single family to live in it, we ended up renting out our apartment and moving into the 1-family. Now, in about 3 years, we went from 0 to 5 properties, consisting of 14 apartments, with gross rents of over $10,000 per month and an accumulated mortgage debt of approximately $1 million. Based on appraisals, we had created an equity of approximately $248,500 in our properties, but they were all break-even or slightly positive properties. Then the real estate market came to a screeching halt. Interest rates went up and some property values dropped drastically. It was about this time that many investors found themselves losing their properties because they had financed them to a point where they had huge negative cash flows. Because our properties were all break-even or slightly positive, we were able to weather the storm. The road we have taken has been difficult at times. However, the good news is as follows. Even with the loss in values, we have been able to accumulate through principal reduction a combined equity of approximately $200,000 in the 4 investment properties. Our 6-family mortgage will be paid in 10 years, and our 2-family in 15 years, which will generate to us a gross annual income of $64,500. That will give us financial freedom. One of the most significant side benefits I realized from this whole process came from the fact that I had learned so much about real estate investments and how to finance them. A mortgage banker that I was working with explained to me how I could use my knowledge of the industry to help others finance their homes. I started my mortgage loan officer career at that time. I have earned a 6-figure income for the past 4 years. If it wasn't for my interest and passion in real estate, I never would have found this career. 6 years ago, we sold the 1-family at about break-even to purchase another 1-family for us to live in. This was a bank foreclosure which needed some repairs. It now has an equity of $160,000, bringing our total real estate equity to approximately $360,000 and climbing. In addition to our real estate, we also have been developing other streams of income. Thanks for helping us start on the road to prosperity. I look forward to hearing from you and working with you. Sincerely, Adam Wisner, Pequannock, New Jersey. Would you like to learn how to do deals like this? The bedrock principle underlying creative real estate investing is this. While the vast majority of sellers are inflexible in their prices and terms, a small percentage of sellers are highly motivated to sell. I call these highly motivated sellers don't-wanters. They don't want their property and are willing to do seemingly irrational things to get rid of it. The secret to buying property creatively is to look for these don't-wanters, the 1% of sellers who are highly motivated. Don't be discouraged by the other 99% of sellers who are not flexible. The process is more than mere bargain hunting. It's hunting for the right kind of seller, then trying to determine if the property is a good value. This process consists of 3 critical activities. 1. Finding. 2. Funding. 3. Farming. Critical Activity 1. Finding how to find highly motivated sellers. What causes someone to become highly motivated? There are 20 reasons which conveniently spell the words don't want or conditions. D. Divorce. O. Obsolescence of property, needs major fix-up. N. Negative cash flow. T. Transfer. W. Wrong management approach. A. Arrears in payments. N. Negative location. T. Taxes. E. Estate situations, deaths. R. Retirement. C. Competition with neighboring properties. O. Out-of-area owners. N. Neurotic fears. D. Debts. I. Ignorance of investment principles and market conditions. T. Time constraints. I. Investment capital, needs capital for another investment. O. Ornery partners. N. Need for status symbols, a new Lexus beats an old building. S. Sickness. If you'll scan the preceding list, you'll see that the majority of the reasons for motivation have to do with the seller's personal situation, as opposed to problems with the property. Your goal is to find an excellent property in the hands of a seller with personal problems. Then you attempt to help this particular seller come up with creative solutions to solve these personal problems. Hopefully the solution doesn't require that you come up with a large down payment. How many people have personal problems? Take a city like Los Angeles. There are well over 1 million individual properties in the 5 major counties surrounding LA. In any given year, approximately 40,000 of those owners will default on their loan payments and receive a letter from the mortgage company threatening foreclosure. About 5,000 of these properties will actually be foreclosed on, and many more will be sold for substantial discounts just before the foreclosure sale. And that's just one source of flexible sellers. Every year, about 70,000 people move out of Los Angeles, and many of these people own homes that they have either sold or are still trying to sell. Every year, there are almost 50,000 divorces, 10,000 bankruptcies, and 75,000 deaths. In other words, there is a lot of opportunity, if you know where to look for it. Let me say a quick word here about ethics. After I rattle off a list of misfortunes like these, it's possible you might be saying to yourself that you don't want to take advantage of someone else's troubles. Actually, it's just the opposite. These people need you. They no longer want their property. It has become a burden to them, an albatross around their neck. They need you to help them to get rid of it as quickly as possible, and they will be grateful for any help you can give them. There's no better feeling in the world than to help someone and, in the process, to help yourself. As the saying goes, help thy brother's boat across, and lo, thine own has reached the shore. Before you become too excited, realize this. Only 1 in 20 sellers is going to have a problem this severe. Less than half of these will own properties worth buying. So the odds are slim, but not impossible. Most of the ads in the newspaper are not flexible. 95% won't be interested in your creative deal. Almost all of the properties listed with realtors in the multiple listing books are not flexible. Sellers have been told by their real estate agents that they will get top dollar. But there are highly motivated sellers out there, plenty enough for you to find at least 1 good property per year. Let me show you how to find them. The bargain finding funnel. There are actually 9 excellent ways of finding once-in-a-lifetime deals. Imagine the real estate money machine. At the top of the machine, chunks of raw ore are being delivered by conveyor belts to the first of several collecting bins. This ore is processed, and the refined ore drops through to the next lower processing bin, where it is again processed and funneled into the next level. Finally, out of the last processing bin comes the final product, beautiful polished diamonds, raw ore at the top, finished stones at the bottom. Your finding system is a similar process, putting lots of ore, raw leads, into the top of the machine, and refining or qualifying these leads until you have an accepted offer on a fabulous bargain property. There are 9 sources of information for finding highly motivated sellers, or to use our analogy, 9 conveyor belts bringing raw ore to the machine. 1. Newspaper classified ads. 2. Realtors and real estate agents. 3. Your own sphere of influence. 4. Focused wandering around. 5. Banks and lending institutions. 6. Your own ads. 7. Direct mail. 8. Investment clubs, associations, and exchange groups. 9. Other professionals. Each of these 9 sources can provide you with raw ore for your machine to process. There are 4 steps to the processing. Let me give you an example. Step 1. Find the lead. Suppose you are reading the classified section of your newspaper and you spot an ad that seems interesting. Seller transferred out of state. Need quick sale. Take over payments. Call 555-1212. This is a lead, a piece of raw ore to process. Step 2. Complete a bargain finder. Call on that ad and fill out a bargain finder form. A simple 1-page fill-in-the-blanks form. The bargain finder will give you a property score. If the score is 11 or less, you just walk away. If it's 12 or more, you're interested. Suppose you call on the ad and, sure enough, the seller wants out and is willing to sell below market for a quick sale. It scores a 12. You rush over to inspect the property and it looks good. Now you're ready for the next step. Step 3. Write an offer. Prepare an offer to purchase the property on terms that meet your own special needs. The seller may accept your offer, reject it, or counteroffer. Suppose he or she accepts your offer. The lead was processed all the way through your machine and dropped out at the bottom as a diamond. Step 4. Buy the property. That's it. It's pretty simple actually, but not easy. The difficulty comes in the processing because very few leads turn into diamonds. But as long as you are willing to keep processing leads through your machine, you will eventually win. It's numbers business, like diamond mining. You run a ton of gravel through your machine in order to find a sparkling diamond. Some people become discouraged and quit too soon. Here's how I stay motivated. Suppose it takes you 100 hours of searching to find a potential real estate deal, which you then buy for $20,000 below the market. How much did you earn for every hour you worked? Well, $20,000 profit divided by 100 hours of effort equals $200 per hour. If you're too busy to earn $200 an hour, I'd say you're too busy. Here's another way to look at it. Suppose you process 100 leads through your finding machine and only 10 in 100 pass your test. You write an offer on all 10, looking for the best deal. One of your offers is accepted, resulting in a $20,000 equity profit. How much money did you earn for every offer you wrote? Let's see, $20,000 profit divided by 10 offers equals $2,000 per offer, even though 9 of those offers were rejected. Did you get that? Every time one of your offers is rejected, a $2,000 check floats out of the sky and lands in your outstretched palm. Here's another way to look at it. You make 100 calls to find one good deal worth $20,000. How much money did you earn every time you picked up the phone? A cool $200. You might have a fear of phone calling, but if I gave you $200 every time you made a call, would it help you overcome your fear? If I gave you 2 $100 bills for every telephone call you made tomorrow from sunup to sundown, how long would you take for lunch? Of course, the kind of calls I'm talking about involve the complete analysis of a potential real estate deal, and you can't collect your $200 per call until you've found, funded, and farmed each deal. But now you have a way to motivate yourself to keep looking. So let's turn on the money machine and start processing these 9 sources of highly motivated sellers. Source 1. Newspapers. When you read the classified section of your local newspaper, you are going to look in 3 separate sections. 1. Houses and/or condos for sale. 2. Houses for rent, lease, or option. 3. Investment property for sale. As you scan each ad, ignore descriptions of the property. You're primarily interested in finding clues to the seller's flexibility. Here are some examples of words, phrases you're looking for. Owner transferred. Low down. No down. OWC. Owner will carry. Out-of-state owner. Can trade, exchange for equity. Takeover payments. Lease option. Rent to own. Desperate. FSBO. For sale by owner. Must sell, make an offer. You call on the ads and fill out your bargain finders until you find a property that scores 12 or more. It takes only 1. Source 2. Realtors. Most licensed real estate agents have access to the Multiple Listing Service, MLS, which is a listing of all available properties for sale in your area. Obviously, this is an extremely good source of information. Searching through this data can be daunting. Narrow your focus to areas of homes priced below the median, bread-and-butter type homes. Then be on the lookout for the clues in the multiple listings that indicate flexibility. Generally, each listing contains a section called Remarks, or Comments, or Miscellaneous Information. You look first to this section to see if the seller has been willing to indicate extra flexibility with comments like OWC, seller transferred, price just reduced for quick sale, will consider trade, can exchange part equity for down payment, might consider a lease option. These clues let you know that the seller is willing to deal, that he or she may not need a conventional transaction with straight cash and a new loan. These clues can also lead you to a creative real estate agent. Finding a creative agent is almost like trying to find a flexible seller. Most agents do not like creative financing, especially the nothing down kind, because they falsely assume that no cash means no commissions. Nothing down doesn't mean there is no cash involved. In fact, there may be a lot of cash. It's just not your cash. If you can work with highly creative real estate agents, you will find the process much easier. Because they will understand what you are looking for, they will be on your side and not resisting you every step of the way. Actually, I find the resistance to creative financing to be largely a matter of ignorance and not philosophy. They simply don't know how to do it, and therefore they claim that it can't be done. So, if you're planning on using a real estate agent, try to find one who is very creative and avoid anyone who seems to resist your desire to find a highly motivated seller. How do you find creative realtors? Notice the kinds of ads they are running in the newspaper. If they use motivational clues, then they are more likely to understand the process. Ask for referrals. When you call a real estate office, ask the secretary for the most creative realtor in the office. It takes only one. Source 3. Sphere of influence. As soon as you begin your process of trying to find your next bargain property, you need to let people know you are in the market for a great deal. Talk to friends, coworkers, family members, total strangers. Anyone can be a lead source. It takes only one. Source 4. Focused wandering around. Pick an area of town in which you'd like to buy your next property. Start driving around this neighborhood on a weekly basis. Stop at every for sale sign and ask what the selling price is and how they arrived at that price. If possible, get a feel for their flexibility. If they seem amenable, you might even try to ask the bargain finder questions. More than likely, you won't find a lot of flexibility this way, but it's good practice. Don't be shy about asking questions. If they're not anxious to sell, they'll brush you off. That's okay. Ask if they know someone else in the neighborhood who really needs to sell. It takes only one. Source 5. Banks and lending institutions. When a bank makes a loan using real estate as collateral, it is hoping that the loan will be paid. But from time to time, the loan goes bad, the bank has to foreclose, and the bank ends up with a property. Property it really doesn't want. A property it wants to unload. This is where you come in. Call major banks in your area. Ask for the person in charge of foreclosures, property repossessions, or REOs. That's bank lingo for real estate owned. This is an excellent source of potential bargain properties. Source 6. Your own advertising. If you really want to be creative, you can run your own classified ad to attract sellers. There are several benefits. First of all, time. If you have more money than time, your ad can attract the kind of seller you are looking for. Have these sellers leave their information on your answering machine and call them back at your leisure. The second benefit is negotiating leverage. They are calling you, which puts you in the driver's seat. And third, you may attract people who have not even thought of selling their property yet. Thus, you avoid competition with other buyers. I taught this idea to a group of 100 people in the Los Angeles area recently. One woman took this seriously and ran her ad in the local paper. It cost her $300 for an ad running several weeks. She received only 6 responses to her ad. That's $50 per lead, but it was high-grade ore. One seller wanted a quick sale and was willing to sell it 40% below market. That single call was worth $50,000. I'd say that was a pretty good investment. I encourage you to experiment with several local newspapers, with several classified ad placements, and several different ad wordings, until you find a combination that seems to produce the greatest number of inquiries from interested sellers. Think cheap at first. Spend extremely frugally. Here are some phrases to put in your ads that have worked for others. Willing to close quickly. Need flexible seller. Excellent references. Family has $5,000 down for seller who can carry. Close quickly. Fair price. Need to sell? No commissions. Perhaps an inexpensive ad like the following will draw a few responses. Young couple looking for first home. Fair price for your home if you can be flexible on terms. Principals only. Call 555-1234. Source 7. County Courthouse Direct Mail Method. Where can you find the highest concentration of highly motivated sellers? Answer, your local courthouse. If you've never been to the courthouse except to pay a traffic ticket, I recommend you take a trip down there on a lunch break and check it out. It is a gold mine of information. Ask the person at the information desk to help you find information about the following. 1. Out-of-state owners. 2. Bankruptcies. 3. Tax sales. 4. Default notices. 5. Foreclosure sales. 6. Divorces. 7. Sheriff sales. 8. Liens filed. Each of these situations is a ripe source of motivation. Case in point, out-of-state owners. A certain percentage of all of the property in your area is owned by people living out of state. Check with the tax assessor to find properties for which tax notices are being mailed to out-of-state owners. Why might out-of-state owners be more flexible? 3 reasons. 1. They may have management problems that are difficult to handle long distance. 2. They don't know property values as well as local owners and may be happy with a below-market price. 3. They are not emotionally involved in the ownership of the property. They are detached. Unlike resident homeowners who need the cash for their next home purchase, the out-of-state owner probably doesn't need the cash and might be more flexible. There is an 8-step process for tapping into this source of highly motivated sellers. 1. Select the type of situation, divorces, default notices, etc. 2. Research name and address. 3. Create a form letter similar to the sample that follows. Dear Mr. Mrs. It has come to my attention that you may be considering selling your property soon. Before you list with a real estate agent, please consider giving me a call. I am a private individual who would like to make an offer to buy your property. It might just save you thousands of dollars in commissions. Even if you've already listed your property for sale, I am a serious buyer who can close very quickly if the price and terms are right. If you're interested, please call 555-1212. Leave a message on my answering machine if I'm not home, and I'll return your call quickly. Sincerely, your name. P.S. I will make a written offer to purchase your property within 48 hours of your call. 4. Have your letter printed. 5. Sign and mail your letter. 6. Wait for a response. 7. Process each lead through a bargain finder. 8. Do a second mailing with a new letter to the same list. Let's say you send 100 letters a month. That'll cost you some time for research and about $50 in mailing costs. How many responses might you get? Certainly not more than 2 or 3 out of 100. 5 if you're lucky. How many good responses do you need? 1. So let's be pessimistic for a minute. Suppose you take a full year to find yourself a fabulous bargain property, and you budget $50 a month for mailing costs. You send 100 letters using the sources I mentioned earlier, divorces, default notices, etc., so that after a year you've mailed out 1,200 letters. How many responses will you have generated? My guess, maybe 20 on the low side, 50 on the high side. What is the probability that one of those properties is owned by a highly motivated seller who might be flexible enough to give you a good deal? It's a numbers game. It's certainly better than playing the lottery. Source 8. Investment clubs, apartment associations, exchange groups. All major cities have a combination of clubs, associations, and groups dedicated to people interested in real estate investments. Check on the net. I found dozens of listings. Source 9. Other professionals. Certain professionals are aware of their clients' problems long before these problems become a matter of public record. Attorneys, divorce, estate, probate, tax consultants, accountants, real estate management companies, collection agencies, banks and lending institutions, and so forth. If you know professionals in these areas, let them know that you are an investor looking to buy property. They may just have a client who might be seeking a quick sale. All it takes is one. By sifting through these 9 sources of highly motivated sellers, you can generate some hot leads on excellent bargain properties. But what do you do when you find one? How can you know whether a property is a good deal? You've probably heard that the 3 most important things to look for in real estate are location, location, and location. Actually, there are 5 things you need to analyze. 1. Seller motivation. 2. Good location. 3. Good financing, including down payment and long-term financing. 4. Good condition. 5. Good price. All 5 of these conditions combine to make a great deal. I have devised a simple scoring system that takes the emotion out of bargain hunting. I give each of the 5 areas a score from 1 to 3, where 1 is poor and 3 is excellent. If the property scores less than 12, I pass and keep looking. For example, suppose you find a house owned by an out-of-town investor. He is desperate and wants to unload the property ASAP. You call and ask questions about each of your 5 areas. Let's say this property scores a 3 in seller flexibility, a 2 in location, a 3 in financing, because the seller wants nothing down and is willing to carry the loan himself, and 1 in condition, and 2 in price, for a total score of 11. Remember, a property should score at least 12 before you get excited about it. The scoring system also gives you clues on how to negotiate. In this instance, you either need a better price or the seller must fix up the property before he sells it to you. Here are 4 guidelines to follow when using this system. Never look at a property until you have scored it and believe it has the potential of being a good deal. You don't have time to waste on unmotivated sellers and uncreative real estate agents. Never fall in love with the property. Remember, you're going to have to sell that property one day. Make it easy on yourself. Buy it right on the front end. Never be afraid to ask sellers questions about their property. Even if the questions seem probing, for example, ask the seller, "If you don't mind me asking, what do you plan on doing with the proceeds from this sale?" In other words, what are you going to do with the money? It would be very helpful to you as a creative problem solver to know the answer to this question. Remember, the first person to mention a number loses. When asking the seller questions on the phone, try not to mention numbers yourself. Always let the seller tell you the numbers. It could save you thousands of dollars. If a property scores well in your phone analysis, you'll want to do a physical inspection. When you inspect a property, you verify all of the data you took over the phone. You verify the neighborhood. You verify the price. You verify the condition of the property, the financial details, the seller's flexibility. It's one thing to score a property over the phone, sight unseen, and another to physically walk through the unit. By the way, I always recommend that before you buy, you look in your yellow pages and enlist a reputable property inspection company to go through the property to do a thorough report. They'll check things like plumbing, electrical, roof, foundation, and many of the details that you would most likely miss. It's worth the few $100s it will cost you, but always try to have the seller pay for it as part of your negotiation. You don't have to have the inspection done before you negotiate, but you should at least make your offer contingent on or subject to the inspection. If the inspection uncovers a lot of problems, you may decide at that time to back out. After you've completed your physical inspection, if the property still scores well on your bargain finder form, then you're ready to go to the next step. Critical activity 2, funding. How to finance bargain properties. How do you negotiate the best deal possible? Actually, the negotiation has already begun. It started with your very first contact with the seller and won't stop until the property is yours. You see, negotiation consists of 3 basic activities: gathering information, building trust, solving problems. Let me give you 3 words that describe a master negotiator: friendly, fair, and flexible. Most people assume that business is just the opposite, that negotiation is a battle in which one person wins and one loses. They believe that you create competitive advantage by using intimidation, that it's my way or the highway. This may work in the short run, but in the long run, being friendly, fair, and flexible always wins, even if the seller is still operating from the old philosophy of intimidation, competition, and inflexibility. Always be friendly, fair, and flexible. Perhaps the following tale will help explain my point. Aesop's Fable. A dispute arose between the north wind and the sun, each claiming that he was stronger than the other. At last they agreed to try their powers upon a traveler, to see which one could strip him of his cloak. The north wind had the first try, and, gathering up all his force for the attack, he came whirling furiously down upon the man and caught up his cloak as though he would wrest it from him by one single effort. But the harder the north wind blew, the more closely the man wrapped his cloak around himself. Then came the turn of the sun. At first he beamed gently upon the traveler, who soon unclasped his cloak and walked along with it hanging loosely about his shoulders. The sun then shone forth in his full strength, and the man, before he had gone many steps, was glad to throw off his cloak and complete his journey more lightly clad. Gentle persuasion is better than force. There's a rule of thumb concerning negotiation. The stronger the tactics, the greater the resistance. The quickest way to lessen the resistance is to develop rapport. Then, and only then, are you able to exert influence. Friends help friends get ahead. Enemies don't. If you want to get ahead, be a friend. Your philosophy is win-win. Both parties should feel that they have achieved a fair settlement.